welcome back to another YouTube video here on Love Inspiry YouTube. I am your girl, Angie. I am the founder of Love Inspiry LLC. Our mission is to build more powerful, more transparent, more durable relationships, and we do that through books, ebooks, online courses, in-person trainings, however we can educate. That is what we are here to do. We want to help individuals enter more healthy relationships, and we also help couples overcome their relationship adversity, and that is our goal here. We do it all through action, commitment, and integrity, which are our core values. In today's video, we are going to be talking about how we can teach our children about relationships. What can we be doing as individuals, as adults, to help our kids work through some of the issues that are caused in childhood that impact their relationships in the future and as adults. And so that's what we're going to be discussing. And then I'm going to be talking straight to the children about boundaries that they need to set in their relationships with people in general. So I was recently on He Said What radio. If you haven't checked them out, please do check them out. They talk about really important things, opening the dialogue and the conversation to certain things that people sweep under the rug. And so I was on that radio show, and the topic was about the residual effects of our relationships, and we got on the topic of how childhood impacts our relationships with the opposite sex. And obviously, as a creative, I get inspired by things people say, things people do, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. And so I wanted to talk more to parents and to kids about how we can better prepare for relationships and ultimately marriages. And my sister and I, who is an artist, we have a book coming out hopefully next year. It's a children's book, but it's more about being more intentional about having that family dynamic, having that two-parent household. As I just read on social media today, if you have a strong marriage, you can have a strong family. Obviously, this is not the case because everybody in a two-parent household doesn't have that, figure. Just because you're living in a two-parent household doesn't mean you're seeing two healthy adults love each other and work together. Just as well as being in a single parent household where you're not seeing how a man treats a woman or how a woman is supposed to treat a man. And so these are all things that we need to discuss and put in the forefront so our children know how to be better partners, better significant others, better wives, better husbands to the people that they are going to get into a relationship with in the future. And so I wanted to talk about action, things that we can do as adults to show, because being an example is more important than anything. I think about my grandparents and the people that have great-grandparents, the people that have gone, they left a legacy for us. And that's what you do when you are an example to your child. You're leaving a legacy behind. You're leaving something for them to idolize and remember you by. I remember my so-and-so, she was really a good woman. I think about my mother-in-law who recently passed away. She was a phenomenal wife, a phenomenal mother, just the example of what all of that is supposed to be. And I'm not just saying that because she's my mother-in-law, but if you knew her, you know what I'm saying. And so I think it's important that we most importantly be examples to our children. And I feel like, we hear the phrase a lot, do as I say, not as I do. And I feel like that phrase is so played out. I feel like that's cowardness. That's a way to say, I'm grown, I can do what I want. But no, we're not really teaching that way. We're just teaching them to be that way when they grow up. We have to be true examples to these kids so they understand how to behave, so they understand how to handle conflict in the future, so they understand how to be loved. So first I want to talk about showing love to the child and nurturing the child. I think when a child is nurtured and when they're loved from the time they are in the womb up until they venture off to college, or if they like me decide to get married, they know how they are supposed to be loved, especially when you're dealing with a father and a daughter. And a father taking his daughter on little daddy-daughter dates and doing things to show her how a man is supposed to love her, how a man is supposed to treat her. And the same thing with a mother and son. That mother is to teach her son how to respect a woman, how to love a woman. And I think that starts at home, us loving on our kids, nourishing them, pouring into them. And I think that we got away from this in the Black community it's a generational curse. If you think about our ancestors who were on cotton fields, and I don't really know what happened back then, but I can only imagine that maybe they didn't have the time and energy to pour in to their children. And so it just became this thing that we do now to say, hey, just get over it, or just deal with it, instead of giving them that hug, giving them that love that they need to get through the day, or get through whatever is happening at school, or get through that first relationship that's not working out how they thought that it would work out. And so that's where we come in as nourishers. How can we nourish our children? Like I said, just giving that hug. Sometimes that hug will do so much for you, just being there to listen to your children, to let them get things, because you have to think about when you were younger, okay? As an adult, you're looking at the troubles that these teens are going through, and you're like, oh, please, honey, I'm dealing with much more. But no, that's their reality right then and there. That's what they're going through right then and there. And I think when we marginalize that, we make our children feel less than. We make them feel like that they're not important, and that's not the case. That's what they are going through right then and there. I can remember going through that and just feeling like, is this stupid for me to go through? Or like, I know when I get older, I'm going to have bigger things to worry about. But that's the life that teenagers live right now. That's their truth. That's their honesty. And we have to be able to nourish that. We have to be able to be attentive and give them the attention that they need to get through those days. The second thing that I want to talk about is just encouraging your child. Encouragement is where a child builds their confidence in themselves. That's where self-worth begins in this journey called life. How we encourage our children in their childhood, in their teenage years. And I think about my own grandparents. I never really heard them, my grandparents, if you know them, they're abrasive. They say what they mean what they say. They come in hard, But I never heard them really discourage me from anything, even if I wasn't that great at it. They never discouraged me from just being who I wanted to be and doing the things that I wanted to do in activities and in school. And I think when we do this to children, if they get into a sport and they're not that great at a sport, obviously you don't want to have build their hopes up to thinking that they're going to go into the major leagues, if they're not good. But just let them do that, giving them encouraging words to keep going, because at the end of the day, you're building confidence in them. And when you build that confidence in your child, you're building, like I said, that self-worth. And that self-worth, that's going to carry them into adulthood. That self-worth is going to carry them into relationships, so they know what they want from a man or a woman, what they won't tolerate. They'll know that they deserve more than probably what they are going to tolerate or what they are giving to a relationship. They'll know what they stand for. And I think self-worth is really one of the top things that cause relationships to fail, because like I said in my last video, that happiness has to come from within. And if you don't have that self-worth, you definitely can't go out in the world and get it from somebody else, because the world will chew you up and spit you out in 3 seconds. And that's why we have to nurture at home. That's why we have to give that good advice at home, because the world is brutal. The world is coming for your kids harder now than it ever has been. So encourage You know, if they're not good at something, still give them that confidence to keep going, never quit, because that's what's going to help them in their relationships. I think it's also important that we show children how to behave. Now, I know when it comes time to co-parent, you know, that can be a little bit tricky, but I think we do err as adults, because I see it happen so many times when adults are arguing in front of the children, or they're putting the children in the middle, tell your mom this or tell your dad that, but you're really messing your child up. You're showing them what dysfunction is like. And that's why, you know, people that come out of a single parent household, they don't really know how to attach to people, and they don't really know how to love people and what to look for, because you're giving them, most of you are giving them dysfunction. You're not showing them how to handle conflict. You're not showing them how to talk to somebody. You're not showing them how to respect somebody. That starts with you. Now we have the argument of when the child gets older, you have opportunities to correct that. I do agree with that. However, I do think some people can be so far gone that it's just no return. They see so much dysfunction, they get no encouragement, and I know because I have a person like this in my family. They get no encouragement, that they are just so far gone that their life is just shattered. And that's what I'm trying to prevent in this video, just parents doing that to their children. I think as an adult, it's important that we open that conversation to children. I think at that time, you know, maybe around 11 or 12-ish, I think that's when it's time to open that conversation about relationships and ultimately marriages, and how to conduct ourselves or conduct themselves in that time. Because at 11 or 12 is when children are a little bit more malleable than, let's say, a 17, 18-year-old. Okay, you are dealing with peer pressure. Maybe you're dealing with being bullied. Maybe you are dealing with just trying to overall fit in. And you start doing things just because the crowd is doing them. And I think that's a good age to really open up and talk about setting boundaries. And that's what I'm getting ready to go over, some important boundaries to set as a preteen to help them in their relationships when they get in middle school and they start dating and they think they're in love and all this good stuff. So I think the first boundary that we need to talk about setting is respecting your body. Respecting your body and understanding that your body is your temple. It's important to know that as a teenager, the first person that says I love you doesn't mean you have to give yourself to this person. You know, I know what it's like. I was just there. I know what it's like to be that age and think that you're in love with this person and the relationship is gonna last forever and this is gonna be the best thing since sliced bread. It's not always the case. Set that boundary of giving yourself so freely. Nowadays, sex is treated just as an object. You know, it's just something we do. No, I want to help children and teenagers and preteens, whatever, understand that sex is not just an object. It's not just something that you do. It's something that you should feel, and you should be old enough to understand love at this time and understand respect and understand making a sound decision of fully giving your body to somebody. I think it's important when it comes to sex and respecting, you know, our boundaries, that we teach our children, or children understand to build permanent instead of worrying about temporary feelings and what's going on in the temporary. Because most of your relationships at the age of 13, 14, they're not going to last. It's very far few in between of relationships that last from high school to now. I think also a good boundary to set is watching the company you keep. And I know, you know, when you're in high school or in middle school, you're thinking that your friends are the best things ever. But you have to be mindful of who you surround yourself with, because jealousy even starts in that age. You know, you may think that this person is your friend, but this person very well may not be your friend. This person may be out to get you. They may be out to set you up. They may be out to get your nude pictures and place them all over line. You have to think like this, and I know it's kind of, you know, silly to think like that, but you do have to think like that. Even in those days, everybody that claims they are your friend is not your friend. So it's important that you set those boundaries and you surround yourself with people that you are like-minded with, people that's not going to, and even if you do, you know, surround yourself with friends like that, make sure they're friends that's not pushing you to do something, that if you do decide to do whatever it is with a man or a woman, that you're doing it because you want to, not because somebody forced you to do it. Make sure that you're doing it on your own free will. That's all I'm saying with that. Also, I want to talk about codependency. So I was the girl who felt like I always needed a boyfriend. When my boyfriend and I, who was my husband now, used to break up. We used to break up all the time in high school. And guess what? The first thing I would go do is find me a new boyfriend, you know, to talk to and act like, you know, nothing ever happened. But listen, that's called codependency. That's what that's called. And that happens because of childhood, what, you know, how your childhood has impacted you, abandonment issues and things of that sort. So you have to understand, and this is where parents come into place of playing a role in your children's life, because when you don't play a significant role in their life, this is what happens. They end up becoming codependent. They end up becoming or feeling like they always need somebody around. I know that I have had people in my family talk to me about their codependency issues, and it's a real thing. I think people take codependency as, oh, this person is just you know, wants to be in a relationship, or some people may actually be sleeping with some of these people. I wasn't that far gone. But you become promiscuous or whatever the case may be. Codependency is a real issue. It's a real thing that takes place in people's lives. And it truly happens in that middle school, high school era where you just think this person is your end all be all. Like, if you lose them, the world is over, your world is done, it's shattered, and you can't pick yourself up. This is a boundary that you must set in your relationships, to know that life is not over because you guys broke up. You know, life has just begun for you, especially when you're in that middle school, high school age. This is not probably a high percentage. This is not going to be the person that you end your life with. And I know that it's easier right now saying it because I'm on the end, but I've been there, and I can tell you that this too shall pass. It's not the end of the world. And I think that's important that we talk about, that you don't have to always be attached to somebody. It's cool to be single, okay? It's cool to do you. It's cool to sit back and do your activities and run track and field, run cross country, you play basketball, whatever you have to do. It's cool to do all that. You don't have to do that with somebody in your corner. So there is a reason, you know, this is part of the reason why I started Love Inspired LLC. There's not many people out here giving marital and relationship advice from their experience, and my company is based off of experience and the wisdom that I gained from getting married at the age that I did, still being married now, knowing since I was a child that I was going to marry my husband. It's all based off of my experience and wisdom that I've gone through with my husband. And I feel like for me, if, you know, just going back to a teenager, I wish that parents were more vocal when it came to relationships. When I decided to get married at 18, I had 0 ounces of support, understandably. However, I do wish that older people were more willing to talk about and open up about relationships and marriages with young adults. And that's what I'm trying to do with my company, is, you know, get you prepared for that. It's never too, like I said, 11, 12, that's the time when you start being a little iffy, and, you know, you can go down, you know, the wrong road. And that's the age where you want to start preparing yourself for relationships, because by 13, 14, you may have yourself a little boyfriend, and he may break up with you, and you may think it's the end of the world, and you may want to not be alive anymore. No. Keep going, keep fighting. It's not the end of the world, I promise you that. Before I dated my husband, I dated a few people, or I was boyfriend and girlfriend with a few people, and it's not your life is not going to end because of that. And I say, let's just start talking to our children more about relationships. Even if we don't understand or know ourselves, let's bring somebody in that we trust to teach them about the complexity of relationships and the composition of relationships, so they understand how to set boundaries. Because there's adults in their 40s that don't know how to set boundaries. They're in and out of toxic relationships because they could have been neglected as a child. I think all of this starts in the household. All of this starts in your home. We have to teach the children. We can't expect the world to teach the children. The world, like I said, it's going to be hard enough for them. We have to give them that love and teach as an example and with our mouth what to expect. I know that it's hard to take accountability for our mistakes as adults. Whether you're a parent or not, you probably play some significant role in your child's life. I know I play a role in my nephew's lives, and it's hard to say that I messed up or I messed up my child. I understand that. However, it's never too late to start now, especially if you're like my age and you didn't get the attention that you needed to get or the understanding that you needed to get when it came to relationships. This is your time now to educate your children. I know for me, when I start having children, I'm going to talk to them about being in relationships. I'm going to talk about them, tell them about the good and the bad, the pros and the cons of marrying at a young age. Just because I did it don't mean you have to do it. So I feel like we have to stop being afraid of talking about the uncomfortable. Because my thing is this, like I've said before, if you're not uncomfortable at some point in your life, you're not growing. And you have to get uncomfortable to grow. If you're still, stuck in that complacent spot, you're not elevating, you're not going anywhere. You have to be willing to grow, and we have to be willing to have these uncomfortable conversations. We have to be willing to share our experience and our stories to prevent our kids from making the same mistakes. Now, granted, of course, they're going to go out and do them. They're going to go out and make these mistakes. They're going to go out and make errors. However, you can say that you educated them. You can say that you gave them the information that they needed to either succeed or to fail. And it's up to them to trust that information and go out and make the right decisions. So this video was just all about, it was a drift from my normal videos, but I just wanted to encourage adults to start talking more to children about relationships and marriages, because if we can get it in the root in that household and work on things that we can do right, I believe that we will develop more strong individuals and more strong individuals that won't enter a toxic relationship or stay in a toxic relationship. So let's just start that conversation with the kids. It's okay, they're soaking it in. I feel like we underestimate kids in understanding that they are paying attention to us. They are looking at our moves. They are watching the things that we do and say. They are aware of what's going on in the world. I remember one time I was at my godson's parents' house and I had an itch in my eye, and I'm like, he was like maybe 1 at the time, 1.5 maybe. And I'm like blinking and I'm doing all of this, and I'm like, and he just came over to me and was like, he could see that I was like disheveled. They're aware of what's going on. Even when you're, trying to act like everything is okay in your relationship, they are aware, they can feel that. So talk to them. Like I said, just because you're in a 2-parent household doesn't mean you're in a healthy 2-parent household. And that goes along with just what I was just saying about how they can sense and they can feel that. So try to be as healthy as you can so we can produce healthy kids, and then we can produce more healthy relationships and more healthy families. That's the ultimate goal, to be healthy, to stop the toxicity dead in its tracks. Let's do something different. So I'll see you all in the next video. The next video I'm really excited to do with my husband. We are going to be talking about, it's actually will air on our anniversary date. So we're going to be going down memory lane, talking about, you know, our relationship and our marriage from the beginning up until now. So come back to Love Inspiry. If you like this video, like it, share it with a friend. Also, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. I post every Wednesday, and I have a new series coming out to air Sundays starting July 26th. It's called Break Over, and it's about discontinuing divorce, opening the conversation so we can limit divorces in the, you know, in the world, and work on having more healthy relationships. So I'll see you all. Have a great day.